All right, today's guest is my friend who I have known for around 25 years. I know we didn't spend a lot of time together, but I still consider you a friend. And I think this is a great story of potential, ability, also tragedy, and second chances. This is my friend, Reggie Carter. How you doing, Reggie?
I'm good. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I'm good, man. My voice is a little raspy. I need to take a drink of this water. So I first met you, I think it was when we were both at a point in our life that was, even though we were on our different journeys and our different, dealing with our different stuff, we had a point, the point when we met was a point where we were both in the same situation.
Correct.
In prison. Yep. We lived in the same building.
Yep.
We ended up having the same job in the prison for a little bit.
Yep.
And got to know each other, and I got to know a lot about you. You always struck me as one of those kind of people that had a great soul and a really kind-hearted person. I used to watch you. Well, I played a few times with you guys, but not much. But when I used to see you playing basketball,
yeah,
I say, man, this is crazy. Because I'm a tall guy. I'm almost 50 now, so I'm not as tall as I used to be. But at that time, I was 6'2". And I don't know, you're what?
5'11", 5'10", somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, and you were dunking. And I was trying to sneak them over like this. And you were like, I don't know, you were down here somewhere with the rim.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, man, this is crazy. And come to find out, I mean, there was a lot of opportunities that you had around basketball, and then learning about your story about what you got you into prison, and just hearing all that. It's just, sure, everybody has a story, and everybody likes to think their story is special, and a lot of people's stories are special, but your story, it just, to me, it's at the top of, like I said earlier, like the potential and ability that was there combined with the tragedy that happened that put you into prison.
Correct.
I think it's just for me, it was a more impactful story. So I'm so lucky to have you here today to share your story with me and Michael.
Glad to be here, man.
So, yeah, man, where should we start, man? I know where did you grow up?
Actually, I grew up in Northeast Denver, the Park Hill area. So you have, I moved around pretty much as a child, because, my grandparents took us in because our parents really wasn't the best, ideal parents that you can have, My mother, drug abuser, drinker, liked to party. My father's a traveling musician, so, he was always in and out of nightclubs and doing his shows and in and out of the States and stuff like that. So it was pretty much me and my older brother. And actually, right now, till this day, he's still doing his thing. He's like one of the premier bands here in the state of Colorado, the Hot Lunch Band.
The Hot Lunch Band?
Yes.
Nice.
So that's Uncle Funk. That's my father. So, yeah.
Wow. So, and then where from there?
So, like I said, we was transitioning back and forth with our grandparents. My grandmother, my grandfather. My grandmother, she was a Jehovah's Witness, and my grandfather was Seventh-day Adventist. So it was like a big battle in between, like, my grandparents, who was going to get my older brother and I to be with them. So we was just bouncing around from place to place. 1 week we'll be there with my grandmother, and we have to follow the rules of the Jehovah's Witness, do everything they was doing, and then we'd turn around and be with my grandfather, which is Seventh-day Adventist, and you had to follow their rules. It was just a lot of stress, and it was really strict,
Well, not having your parents around either, though.
Exactly. But when they did want to come around they wouldn't allow us to be with them because, you know, the way that they carried on. You know, your father, he's a musician. My grandfather used to say, oh, he's playing the devil music.
Okay.
You know, and my mother really wasn't responsible because, you know, at the time, like during the 70s, the 80s, man, heroin was real big, you know, and my mom used to shoot that stuff up, you know, and drink and just let me and my brother wreak havoc. We'd be on our big wheels, man, riding up and down the block, man, like 6 o'clock in the morning, man, causing noise. And my grandfather be getting off the bus and he had chased us to the house because we're out there at 6 o'clock in the morning riding our big wheels around the neighborhood. And my grandpa would go up in the house, man, and he has to get my mom right because my mom is just incapacitated, you know, from whatever she was doing the night before. So pretty much at a young age, we had to take care of ourselves at a young age.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I had a similar thing coming up for sure. Yeah, you it's like my kids right now, they're 13 and 15, and I'm keeping them on lockdown right now. I mean, to an extent, I just try to occupy their time with working out, going fishing, going and, you know, just doing different things, hiking and stuff like that, rather than them being out there like we used to be out there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, out there with no structure, and it's not a place for a child to be. You're supposed to hit the world as a young man, not as a child.
Yeah, you know, like I said, my kids, they're grown now. Actually, I have my son's turning 20 tomorrow. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
He's turning 20 tomorrow. And then my daughter, she's in Atlanta. She's 21. And, you know, I worry about them, but they're grown now. You know what I mean? They're pretty good kids, obedient. They're not out there in the crowd. But sometimes, you know, I may come off like old fashioned to them. You know, I may say something, you know, and they'll look at me with a puzzled look like, come on, Dad, get with the times, you know, but I just want to protect them from what I've been through. It's just like, I look at my past experience like, man, I would never want to wish this on any child or anyone coming up, you know, because it's just like the worst thing ever. I can tell you is this, like, I'll go visit like friends. I go to friends' house and they got their mother, they got their father, you know, and they sit down as a family and eating meals. They eat their meals and stuff. And I used to always ask them like, dude, why are you tripping with your parents? You know what I mean? I wish I had that.
Yeah.
You know, when I leave here, I'll go home. There's nothing. Sometimes I may go home. The lights might not even be on. You got to light a candle. You know what I mean? Or I have to go to a food bank just to have something to eat. You know what I mean? My getaway from me was school. I tell my friends, pick me up for school. You know what I mean? A lot of people's like, well, you ain't got no parents. You ain't got no guidance or anything. You can just do what you want. But that's not what I wanted to do. You know? My getaway, I wanted to get away from that. So school, being around my peers, my friends, sports and all that, that was my getaway from the reality I had to return to after all that was over with.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was a lot.
So did you do good in school then because of that?
Yes.
Man.
And, you know, the wild thing is a lot of people don't know, but I was an honor student.
I believe it.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was an honor student, an athlete. And then after that, when I leave from school, the reality is no hot water, you know, food to eat. You have to go to your neighbor's house. Maybe they give you something. So with that being said, you know, you turn towards the streets, the street life. You know what I mean? Like, I am tired of waking up hungry. I'm tired of not having things. I'm tired of being teased because I don't have the up to date school wear. You know, I'm wearing like Wranglers and Lee jeans, and everybody else got like Gucci and
Jordans.
Yeah, they got all that stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm wearing Payless specials and stuff like that. And you know, people just teasing you. And at that point, I just got tired of it. You know, and my uncle Otha, God rest his soul, one day he came home and he had some stuff, and he was like, "Nephew, I'm about to show you something."
How old were you at this point?
At this point, man, I think I was like 14, 15.
And this was still in Denver?
This was in Denver. by this time, you know, they transitioned from the heroin. Now we're talking, this is the crack epidemic, you know.
So 14, this was late 80s.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he introduced me, he showed me how to rock it, to cut it, and to distribute it. And after being able to see that, it was a fast track. Like, man, you mean to tell me I can get $20 just for this little piece of rock? He showed me how to do all that. My uncle, he used to abuse that stuff. So, of course, him and all his friends was customers. But by that time, you know, it was so much money. I mean, I was no longer the kid that had hand-me-downs. I was no longer the kid that wore Payless specials and stuff like that. I was able to have the Gucci. I was able to have the Guess jeans and all that other stuff that comes with that lifestyle. Go to school with a pocket full of money and stuff like that. I can buy all my friends lunch. You know what I mean? And they're like, man, where are you getting all this money from? And I never told nobody what I was doing. I always left that behind, you know. That was like after school. When I was in school, it was just to get away from all that. School was just like my stress relief, I guess, if you want to call it that.
I mean, but you were doing good, and then when you start doing stuff like that, you were doing good in school, I should say. And then when you start doing stuff like that, like selling drugs, that has to distract you a little bit from your schoolwork.
Nah, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do that. That's the crazy thing is I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I had to do it. You know what I mean? Because I seen what that was bringing. Like,
yeah,
I was able to have steak if I wanted steak, chicken. You know what I mean? I was able to help my mom with her lights. You know, if she needed money, I was able to give that. You know what I mean?
Security.
Yeah. So that's the only reason. I was doing it like a job. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I knew it was wrong because I seen how it was affecting. And, you know, like I said, with me and my older brother growing up, we seen our mother, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but after she got, you know, did the drugs and she's just like out of it, just laying around just like a zombie or something, you know what I mean? And everybody else just laying around the house, alcohol bottles, you know, all that stuff, you know what I mean? Syringes, all that. I used to play with it as a kid. I couldn't have been nothing but like 5 or maybe 6. Yeah. They had to rush me to the hospital because I had eaten my mom's heroin, because heroin looks like chocolate. And I eaten it, and they had to rush me to the hospital, man. And they had to pump my stomach and do all these things, you know what I mean? Because I've eaten my mom's. Basically, I could have, I don't know if I OD'd or not, but they had to get it out of me. And then at that point, that's when things got really bad because the state was in there. They got involved, and they was trying to separate me and my brother, and my grandfather would not allow the state to separate the two of us because my older brother and I was 1.5 years apart. So everybody thought we were twins, but he was just 1 year older than me, you know, and everything that he did, I used to try to mimic because at that time, man, he was my everything, you know what I mean? I wake up and see him, go to sleep, see him. He'll go off and do what he had to do to come back, you know what I'm saying, and make sure I was okay. He used to try to protect me from everything, protect me from the gangs and all that, even though he moved off and went to California for a while. And then when he came back, I didn't know what Crips or Bloods was. I was introduced to that when my brother came back from California because we had family that stayed in Compton, California, and that's where my brother would go. And then that's how all the gangs, by this time, man, this was probably like 86, 87. Before, you know, then the gangs really took off 88, 89, 90s, in the 90s, you know what I mean? By that time, I was well aware what Crip and Bloods and all that stuff was, you know. I used to take my brother's clothes. When he'd leave, I take his clothes, I put on his Dickies, and I go to school. I have his Dickies. Nobody knew what that was. They was like, what is this dude doing? Why is you wearing that old man farmer type stuff? And they didn't know what the Dickies was. They didn't know what the rag represented. They didn't know none of that until the gangs started coming out with the movies, Colors, and all that other stuff. And then that's when everything went wild. They was like, oh, okay, this is what it is, you know?
Yeah, I remember. So I lived in California. I lived in California from 89 to 92. And man, I lived in so many different neighborhoods. I lived in Norteño neighborhoods, Sereno neighborhoods, Laos Crip neighborhoods. There's all kinds of other Crip gangs, blood gangs. I mean, it's crazy the amount of gangs out there in California. Yeah. Like every time, and we moved everywhere. We moved from Northern Cal down to the Bay, which is still Northern Cal. And we were just in so many, because my dad, he didn't have a lot of money, so you always move around.
Right.
And so we would always be in like bad neighborhoods, wherever the cheapest rent was at. And yeah, and then I came here at 16 to Denver. Man, I was like the wildest kid here. I got in so much trouble. I was in the Montview several times, just always getting arrested. Always something that had to do with crazy stuff. Yeah. Always, it was nothing like, it was nothing petty. It was always just something, it was always like, you know, something of violence or something that had to do with other things I shouldn't mention because my kids are still young and sometimes they watch these episodes. But yeah, it's a world of difference, I think, from California to Colorado, at least at that time. Colorado, I think, is still is nice, but I think lately it's, in the last 20 years, I think it's gotten a lot more, the gangs have built up.
Oh, yeah.
In Colorado.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, I don't think it was terrible, but it was here. A lot of Hispanic gangs here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you started getting introduced to that though, but it was spreading, I think. Yeah. So in the 90s when I came here, it was starting to spread here, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's when it really started getting bad in the 90s.
Even the kids in the suburbs.
Yep.
Where I was at, because that's how I was getting in trouble. I mean, I had one night I had these kids chasing me. It was a group of kids. It was Green Mountain High School, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 50 to 100 kids chasing me.
Oh man!
And me and a buddy Frankie, and there was like Crips and Bloods and like jocks and like cowboy kids and stoners, and they were all together.
Oh man!
And they're all chasing me, trying to. One dude had a sword too, and some dudes had some guns and stuff. But anyways, I was like, man, where am I at? Well, this is a weird place. I mean, all the other places I lived on the East Coast and in California, if someone chases you, like the group chasing you is like a similar group. But when I came here, it was, I don't know, but it was the suburbs, I guess. Maybe that's what happens in the suburbs.
Right.
They're just all like, come on.
Right.
I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, Denver was a little nuts with Park Hill. Were you still in Park Hill at this point then?
Yep. Park Hill. And the crazy thing is, at that time, Park Hill is known, that's where the Bloods be in Park Hill.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
So I was on 33rd and Olive, and that's like, right there. I mean, I went to school with these guys. I mean, grew up with them and everything. You know what I mean?
But they were there for a long time, the Bloods, huh?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you weren't a Blood.
No.
Yeah.
I was Crip.
Yeah.
Yeah. My brother was, well, they knew how I got affiliated was through my brother. So it didn't even matter, they'd be like, AJ, you know what I mean, be after him, and they'd be like, well, there's his brother, and they would tie me into all that, even though I wasn't at the time. Like I said, man, I was going to school, I was doing my thing in school, athlete, all that, football, I was doing it all, but when you come home to reality, the reality of it is you got the gangs, you got the drugs, you got the parents who's drunk fighting each other, you got the police that's constantly harassing, you know what I mean? You getting pulled over for walking just to the bus stop, you know what I mean? And they wanting to take a picture of you and contact cards and all. It was just a lot of pressure. And then eventually, man, I started giving in to it, giving in, at the point in time, my grandfather's done everything he possibly could to keep us right. But at the same time, I'm 16, my brother's 17, and I have younger aunts and uncles, which is my mother's younger siblings, which are younger than me. So everybody was thinking these are my little brothers and sisters, but they're actually my aunts and uncles. So my grandfather was stuck in a hard place. Like, do I keep trying for my grandkids, or do I separate my grandkids from my kids, because we're all so similar in age, close in age, like we're rubbing off on his kids. And the good thing, you know, the wild thing is my grandfather was a deputy sheriff. He's been a deputy sheriff for Denver for a long time. He's well respected, well known person.
Wow.
You know, and then here you have your two grandkids who are just running wild, you know, and then you're a staple of the community and you're trying to raise your new family right. But you got me and my brother sneaking in and out of the house. Gang activity, paraphernalia, just all this stuff is just going on. And at the same time, I did not want to do none of that. I didn't want to do none of that. I just wanted to be a normal kid, but everything was just so strict. You know what I mean? I didn't have a girlfriend, man, until like I was at least a junior or senior in high school. You know what I mean? Because it was that strict. Couldn't have phone calls, couldn't do none of that, you know?
So it sounds like yeah. So I've been in the situation where you don't have parenting, you don't have the mentors, so you're on the streets and you're just on your own. You're kind of having to do your own thing. And then when structure does come back into your life or tries, you've already had a taste of that other stuff where it's really hard. And if someone like your grandfather, he's working a full-time job, he's taking care of other kids and things like that, I mean, and then he'd almost have to be with you by your side all day to steer you back on the right track.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost impossible at that point. I mean, I've noticed a difference, and my kids witnessed none of this kind of stuff. And me just being off of work for the last 3 weeks because I took a leave of absence, I've been with my boys almost every day, and I just noticed a difference in a few weeks. And they never had no problems. But right. I noticed just getting them refocused, having a mentor by their side where they're not like, oh, well, my friend, I want to go do this with my friend and that with my friend and this over here and over there, because those are other things that are available to them. It really takes a lot of time for a parent to really give their kids focus. And yeah, I mean, like you said, with you guys not being his kids and him having to focus on his kids and him trying, though, it definitely sounds like he's trying, but then now you're resisting. Yes. Because we was being rebellious, you know? Because like every Saturday, well, okay, if you're familiar with Seventh Day Adventist, Friday is the preparation of the Sabbath, because Saturday is considered the Sabbath. So Friday from sundown, I believe from sundown to Saturday's sundown is considered no TV, no music. You worship all day, you know, you focus on your religion, you know. And what that entails that means no Friday night football, no Saturday basketball games. Oh, man. None of these things, right? But I'm on the team. I joined the team, and I'm telling them, like, Grandpa, just come see me. I'm actually good. You know what I mean? You tell us how you boxed. You telling us how you played baseball and all these things when you was coming up. But you're restricting me from being able to do this, and I'm actually good. You know? So by him not allowing us to do that for the first few years, okay, I'm gonna go to church, I'm gonna do all these things, you know. Then maybe as we get older, he'll give in to all this, right? But at one point in time, man, I'm just going to practice throughout the week, you know. I have my friends teasing me. They was like, yeah, man, you're a good practice player. Because you couldn't play the games. Because I couldn't show up for Saturday and Friday for the games. Man, you know what I mean? I never knew that about you, man. Like the story that I knew about you was I was thinking you were playing all the time, but there was a period where you were kind of blocked from doing that. From doing it. So wow. I had to start sneaking out the house just to be able to do this.
And that's when things started getting really, really bad for us. You know, my grandfather was getting upset, then he wants to discipline us, you know what I'm saying? And when he disciplined us, it wasn't like a belt or anything like that. It was like hands-on. You know, he was punching us up, you know, what we would call today as abuse. You know, he was punching us up for doing that. Or he'll lock us out in the cold. It'd be cold outside and we couldn't get in the house and stuff, things like that, to that nature, you know. So eventually it's like we started staying with friends and stuff like that. Like,
were you selling drugs at this time with your grandfather?
No.
Oh,
that came after I left.
Oh, okay.
So I left my grandfather and went back to my mother, to that environment.
Because then you had the freedom.
I had the freedom to do whatever.
That's 100% freedom.
And so I was running, doing everything I possibly could.
So sorry, you left your grandfather. Just clear that up, because you said that you started doing this stuff. Your uncle introduced you at 14 to selling the drugs. But so you were with your grandfather before the age of 14.
Yep.
Okay.
And then once we started getting in our preteens and started getting older and started maturing, that's when things was getting rough. Because
so you left your grandfather when you were like what, 12, 13?
13, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we were still bouncing back and forth. You know what I mean? Because, you know, he's our grandfather, you know what I mean?
Right.
And if I needed a plate or something to eat, you know, I'll go to my grandpa's. But prior you being here, these are my rules. If you can't abide by my rules, then I don't want you in my home. Yeah. So eventually it got to the point where it's like, why even be here?
It's like one extreme to the other. You had somebody who was not, you know, doing what they needed to do and raise their children correctly. And then you had someone who could, who the structure was there. I mean, at least the house and the job and the presence, and then was too strict.
Too strict.
You didn't have that middle ground.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So one extreme to the other.
Yeah.
By the way, I was raised Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, okay. So you know exactly what I'm saying.
I know exactly. I had my parents weren't that strict, but my cousins' grandparents, I remember hearing stories. Friday night, the sun went down, they'd put a blanket over the TV.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it would be there until, you know, Saturday night and the sun went down, then you could take it off and then you could do stuff again.
Yes.
That's a little extreme. Just turn it off.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
You know.
I guess if you don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind 7-Day Adventists. I mean, normal ones. Like, I haven't heard of these extremes, but they always the ones that I knew seemed like good people. But yeah.
I mean, moving forward today, I kind of understand what he was trying to do, you know, and I respect that. But at the same time, you took so much away. You know, when you want to think about your childhood, a lot of people talk about, you know, oh, I had a happy childhood. You know what I mean? I cannot say that I had a happy childhood, and I can vaguely like remember because it was been so much trauma in between, like whether it's with my mother, staying with my uncle, to my grandfather, then back, and then even trying to stay with my father. My father came and got me out of juvenile hall. He came and got me out of juvenile hall. I think I was 15, because I was with the older friend. His name was, Ronnie. We'll say Ronnie. His name was Ronnie, and he broke into a house and had me as a lookout. And when he went in there, I mean, he came out, he had a whole bunch of stuff, man. He had a whole bunch of stuff, had a car, took the car and everything, and had me as a lookout. And he gave me a ride home, and he gave me a cassette player, so I can put in my basement, and some speakers and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, wow, cool, you know. And then when the detectives came to my grandfather's house and went in that house and seen the CD player and all that stuff, they took it and they came and got me in school and took me to juvenile hall.
Man.
Took me to juvenile hall, man. And that was my first experience of ever going to jail. I was in juvie, and I was there probably like 2 weeks. And it was an eye-opening experience, you know. And my father came up to the court because my grandfather was there. And they was like, well, you know, you have to have a parent release so you know you can get out. My grandpa didn't want to do it. He was like, leave him in there.
Oh, he's a cop. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, leave him in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I learned. I didn't do anything. I was just here. I was looking out. But he was like, nah, leave him in there. So my father, he signed the release for me to be there, you know, to get out. So I stayed with my father, man, maybe, I don't know, I want to say like 6 months, if that. And it was kind of a stress. It was a struggle. I felt he didn't want me there. I know my father loved me, but he was never in my life like that. You know what I mean? And by me being there, I felt was more of a burden for him because he would have to provide me transportation to get to school, clothing, you know, and lunch money, and, you know, all these things. You know, he's done it for so long. But at one point, I do remember I stayed with my friend Arthur and his family, and my dad showed up at the door with my clothes and gave it to Miss Ayers, and he told her, he was like, I can't take them. So I was like, she was like, excuse me? He's like, I can't take them. So he left me. He just dropped me off at Miss Ayers' house, and I was staying with her for a little bit. And she got me to get a job. She used to work at the hospital and stuff, and got me a janitorial job. And I was making money, you know, working at this janitorial place, you know, cleaning all the offices and all this. And because mind you, I was a teenager.
How old were you at this point?
I think I was like 15.
Okay. This is before your uncle.
Yeah.
Before your uncle taught you how to sell drugs.
Right.
One thing I did want to say, though, really quick, is one thing I'm noticing, because I've known you for a long time, and I would say the same thing about my parents, too, but I'm going to say it about your parents. I think they missed out, man. I think they missed out on a great kid. And I'm sure at different points you have relationships with your parents, and I'm sure, I don't know, is your father still around?
Yeah,
that's right. You said earlier he performs in Denver. Yeah. Do you talk to him?
I do.
That's good. I think now, you know, and I know your mom's going through the situation where she's not doing good right now, and
right.
She's you know, with a lot of health things going on, and I know you went to see her recently, so I know now sounds like, you know, they have you, but I think they missed out too, because I always thought you were a really cool kid, and man, it just sucks that they missed out on that, and that you missed out on having those parents. Yeah. I just thought that was a good time to say that, because I was just thinking it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine.
So you got the job.
Yeah, so I got the job. I was doing a janitorial.
So you're already working like at 14,
right?
Trying to make some money.
So I'm getting these checks.
See, you had all kinds of potential, man.
But
everybody's just passing you up on your potential. Right. You're like, I'll do good in school, I'll work, I'll play sports, and everybody's just like, nah, we don't need you to do anything good. Just do everything crazy. Right. Man, that's rough.
So I was getting paychecks, and I get the check, and I would give it to Miss Ayers. I give it to her, and I'm wondering, like, well, I ain't seen none of this money, man. I'm working this job. How come I'm not seeing money? So one day she came, she called us all upstairs. We was getting ready to go to school, and she cashed the checks I had. She gave me like $100. I think it was like $100. But back then, you know, $100, man, 16, 15-year-old kid, like, ooh-wee, you know?
Yeah.
That's a lot. But not only was she taking my check, but she was giving it to her kids, you know, giving them allowance, just giving everybody allowance, and taking the money that I was making and putting it towards the house. Because I was asking, I was like, well, where's my checks? And she was like, sweetie, I have to feed you, I have to clothe you, I have to take you to school, so that's where your checks is going. And I'm like, wow. So I'm working at this age, and you're taking that money, giving your kids allowance, paying your bills. And I'm saying to myself, that's something, man, somebody in my age, I shouldn't have to do. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's a burden that my father placed on her, because now she has to worry about another mouth to feed.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It kind of
Because
makes sense.
you couldn't figure it out. You didn't want to deal with a teenage son that you had no relationship with in the first place. You know, sometimes till this day, I still struggle. You know, when my father gets up in front of people and he's like, "Oh, this is my son, Reggie Jr., man. This is my legacy," you know what I mean? And everybody's all like, "Hey," you know what I'm saying? And he's just gloating in the, you know what I mean? And I'm saying to myself, like, only if they knew what you done.
Or didn't do. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's probably the bigger part, right?
Yeah, but I don't, me, the person that I am, I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna rain on your parade, but you know, in your heart, you know. When you look at me, you know. When I look at you, you know.
Well, and my wife told me something recently, because her kids, they're thinking about moving just because, I don't know, there's a lot of crazy stuff in America right now. They're trying to raise their kids. They don't know where they want to move. They're looking at different states and different things like that. But I said, how do you feel about if your kids leave from Colorado, from Denver? And she said, hey man, she said, everybody's on their own journey. You know, they have their own life to live. She said, sure, I love them. I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss my grandkids, but they have their own journey, their own life. I can't hold them back. And, you know, I've, you know, she told me that recently, but I've thought these things before as well. It's like with my parents and different people that didn't do what you think they should do. At some point, it's like, man, I got to focus on my journey because I can't be held back or impacted or affected emotionally by what they did. I got to just hit the reset button, delete that, and, you know, just move on. Move on is a very simple way to say it. But, yeah, I understand those feelings. I do understand those feelings. But, yeah, it's hard, man.
It is, because it's like, if I don't reach out to him, he sure won't reach out to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have to call him up every now and then, like, "Hey, Pops, how you doing?" "Oh, I'm good. How are you?" You know? And I'm saying to myself, like, wow, like, I have to have this relationship with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But the wildest thing is in my heart, I hold no grudge or any animosity towards my mother or my father. I love them to death. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love them to death. But I just don't appreciate how you did this. You know what I mean?
So
like,
your older brother, was that his kid too?
My father's no.
So he only had one, you?
Yes, he had me, but I have other siblings that he's done the same to.
Oh.
You know, they don't know nothing about my father except for the youngest. He's the lucky one. So after all my other siblings, the last of us is the one that actually my father got it right with.
Or he got older and he slowed down a little bit.
Well, yeah, that too.
Because he sounds like a musician who's going out, living that life and that nightlife. And a lot of times in that world, there's no time for family, you know, for kids.
And pretty much all of them, that's the mothers, you know, that's what they were saying. Like, your father just didn't have time. Yeah. You know? And I'm like, man.
I've got a friend like that right now. He's in his early 50s, and he's always out, and he loves that life. Doesn't drink anymore though. Doesn't do any of that. He just likes going out and being in the music scene and just being around the industry, you know, because he loves it. He loves that nightlife and, you know, the music, and he knows a lot of people too. A lot of famous people he knows and has relationships with. But I remember we had our kids at the same time when we were younger, and he's probably gonna get mad at me if he hears this, but he's gonna say, "You were in prison, you didn't spend time with your kids." That's what he's gonna say. Because if I say that, you know, he was doing all that and wasn't spending as much time with his kids, but he didn't live with his children children's mothers, you know, and didn't spend a lot of time with his kids, but he was doing that. I mean, he would disagree, so I probably shouldn't speak on it. But yeah, I see people like that, you know, and I could easily, any of us could do that. Any of us could do that. It's just, it's a little bit of selfishness, and it could be a lot of selfishness too, you know, where you just want to focus on yourself and do that. But yeah, I don't think he probably doesn't dislike his kids. He's just living his life, man. He was used to doing that, and then he got some girls pregnant, and
oh shoot,
he's like, I don't want
responsibilities.
Yeah, I don't want to change what I'm doing. Yeah.
So, you know, that's one thing that I feel that I've missed out on. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm far from perfect. I have hiccups in my relationship, you know what I'm saying, my marriage and with my children, you know what I mean? And I be wanting like fatherly advice. You know what I mean? Like, pick up the phone like, hey, Pops, you know, I done this, or we're going through this. How can I make things better? What can I do? I can't call on him for that because he wasn't there for me. So basically, he couldn't show me how to be a man. I had to learn on my own on how to do things, right? So like being incarcerated, I had to grow up quick because I was incarcerated at a young age. So basically, you know, Colorado, that puts you in prison with grown folks at 16. You know, I was 19. So being in there, I had to learn from the people from behind the walls on what it was to be a man, you know, and then try to figure it out once I was released. You know what I mean? Trying to put it all together.
So back up. Hold on. So now you're with your uncle when you're 15. That's when you start really getting into dealing drugs, and I think you said shortly after that, that's when you started gangbanging, and that. So before we get to the prison thing and what happened with that, what happened from? So obviously it started going downhill
Fast.
Did you graduate high school?
I did.
Wow.
I did.
So for 3 years ish, from the age of 15 to 18, did you graduate when you were 18 or sooner?
Yes, 18, yep.
That was probably a wild 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it went by fast. I mean, everything was happening so fast. It was like one thing after another, like nonstop. Oh, yeah. Nonstop. Soon as I graduated from high school, I mean, I know I'm bouncing all over the place. It's just so much, man, that I'm processing, you know what I mean? And it's like so much. I've had, okay, we'll back up. So after my grandfather, we'll get back to that part with my grandfather, you know, with the Seventh-day Adventists wouldn't let us play sports and stuff like that. I started sneaking out. At that time, then people got to be able to see when I was going to the games, playing the games and doing sports activities and having people coming to Miss Ayers and them, you know, like, hey, we're interested in this guy, this kid, he's really good. You know what I mean?
What ages was that when you started getting interest from, were they scouts?
Yes, from anywhere. It was 17, my junior, senior year. That's when everything started. And when I was actually, I'm away from my grandfather, I'm playing sports, but I'm still tied in with running around thinking I was gang banging and all that other stuff. I even had my coach told me one time when we was at practice, he said, Reggie, if you don't get your head out your butt, stop worrying about being out there, being a gang member, and focus on your craft at hand, you know, you'll really be somebody. I mean, Coach Gregory, he was a hard man, but he was a good man. He told you how it was.
Were you a point guard?
Yes.
Yeah.
But this was my football coach.
Oh.
This was my football coach.
So you played football?
Yes.
Was there interest in you for football? Because you...
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
For what position?
I was a tailback, wide out, kick return, defensive back, all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where'd you play at?
Montbello High.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They have a good program from what I hear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and at that time, man, every year we was in state.
You know they got a new high school now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do.
That's a beautiful facility right now. Their field is crazy nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thought I'd never see the day, because when I was playing, man, it was just a dirt field back then.
Yeah, that was the old school. Yeah. Yeah, when they did it, that was just a couple of years ago. I was like, wow, I drove by it. I was like, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's all we had. You know, me and my brother used to go back and forth with sports. That's all we did. We'd sit in the backyard, we'd make up. We used to play baseball. We used to do it all.
Yeah.
I mean.
So you were good. How good would you say you were? Like if it was like if there was a national ranking, because you're going to have to let us know who was looking at you, what schools, what opportunities you had. How good were you?
So I didn't have Division I. So like a lot of my peers, man, that went on, they was going like Ohio State, they was going to Iowa, Fresno. They was having like big schools like that. The people that is knocking on my door talking to me, it was like Adams State, Northern Arizona, like Division III and II schools, the smaller ones.
But with scholarships.
Yeah, partial scholarships.
Yeah.
So the problem that they was a lot of them was afraid of, because, okay, my grades were good. But they were saying, but he has a learning disability. That's what they were saying. He's in these LD classes, learning disability classes, right? So, of course, if you're being in a learning disability class and you ace that, you're going to get the good grades and stuff like that, right? So they was more afraid of my, what you call it, your ASAP scores and all that, your ACT testing and all that. So I don't know how many times I took it, like 3 times. The third time I passed.
So because earlier you said in school you were like an honor roll student or whatever,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then did it start to slip in the later years when you were?
No.
Oh.
No, I mean I stayed, but when they're looking at your grades and stuff, they're not looking like he's not 18, 17 years old. You know what I'm saying? He's not reading at a college level, right?
Oh, okay.
He's reading at maybe junior high or 9th grade or something like that. That's what they're saying. I was behind like that.
So they get into the weeds.
Yes.
On where you're actually at.
Right.
Okay.
So, that's the reason. And plus, they was going off your scores and your ACT testing and all that.
That can happen in some schools. Some schools can put you at a high level in that school. But then if you test out, with some other independent test or something, then it changes.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, that's just a mistake, man. I just, I think about a lot of that, like, man, only if I knew then what I know now, things would be a lot different.
A lot more. Oh, of course. Hindsight's 20/20, man.
All that.
I would have done everything different.
I mean, I wanted to get away and escape so bad, man. I even signed up for the military.
Wow.
I signed up for the military. Me and a few other classmates, we went down and took the test and everything.
So like in your senior year?
Yeah. Took the test and everything. It was accepted.
That's what happens when you just don't know what to do sometimes, I feel like.
I just wanted to get away so bad. And then actually when I got there, the recruiter, after you go in, we went down on the Saturday, we sat in, we did the testing and the math test and all this other stuff. They told me, they was like, no, you don't qualify. You don't qualify for being like the IT and all that. You are more so the grunt. We'll put you on the front line. You can go fight the war. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to do that.
Infantry, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So as they were doing the test, you have to do a bunch of medical testing.
Because they don't tell you they're going to put you on the front row. No, but they say infantry.
Right.
Yeah.
But I got to asking, and a lot of people, they was like, nah, man, that's war, bro.
That's the end result.
Yeah.
You'll be on the front lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And it kind of scared me. But I didn't want to go back because things were so bad. Like, I don't want to go back waking up hungry and all that other stuff. At this time, I'm out of school, out of school with nothing to do.
Oh, so you had graduated at this point. Okay.
So, and then I was like, well, I don't want to do this. So what they said was, you did your medical test and I have chronic asthma And so I couldn't blow in this tube, and it was only go so far because of my asthma. I didn't have the medication and all this and that, so they didn't want to accept me because of my asthma. So I think that was just a sign, like, that's not for you. The military's not for you. So I just left it alone. They wanted me to go back.
Were you still gangbanging at this time?
I still was gangbanging.
Were you still selling any?
I still was doing that too.
Graduated high school, selling drugs, gangbanging, applying for the military. You're kind of all over the place, man.
I am.
Yeah.
I had, like I said, I had no guidance.
Yep.
Nobody was. I didn't have no mentor, nobody to put me in the right place that I needed to be.
For sure.
You know, I couldn't rely on my brother because my brother, man, he was the man. You know what I mean? But he used to try to shield me from all that, keep me away from all that. But he was always in and out from state to state. You know, I was just trying to figure it out, navigate through it on my own. Then I finally got in touch with the people from northern Arizona, wanted to give me the opportunity, give me that shot. Right? I get there and I'm just like not knowing what to do. Like, who's going to help me, man, get my classes?
You're out of your element.
Yeah. I need help getting my classes. Who's going to help me with my funding? You know what I'm saying? My financial aid packets. They're always like, you got to do it on your own. You know what I mean? And I'm finding myself like just going to practice. I'm not going to figure out no classes. I'm not trying to do none of these things. I'm in a place that I don't know about. It's hot as heck. Everything is done at night. You know what I mean? And I was just out of place. But the thing, man, that messed me up the most is when I tore my knee up. And everything from that point, that's when life changed dramatically for me. When I returned, never went back, picked up selling the drugs and doing all that.
So expand on that a little bit. You went to northern Arizona and you had an injury there.
Yes.
While training, or
yes, tore my ligaments up in my knee, and from what the doctor said, that he was like, you'll never be able to run, you'll never be able to play sports. Your knee is pretty shot, because I tore everything. I tore my patella, my MCL, my ACL. They had to draft. I have a rod in my knee now. I can only bend my knee so far.
So how long were you there until that happened?
Probably 3-4 months.
Wow. So here, just a little glimpse of something different in life. Put you in a new setting.
Correct.
If you wouldn't have got hurt, I mean, we can talk about what ifs, but imagine if you didn't get hurt, it would have been a different experience for sure. And then here you are 3 months later, injury. And what are they saying at this point? Like, well, if you're not playing basketball, you don't have the scholarship, or how does that work?
Well, it wasn't for basketball, it was for football.
Oh.
Yeah.
You weren't even playing basketball for college?
No, it was football.
Man, I never known you to play football. I've always seen you play basketball, so wow.
Yeah. Well, that was the idea. You get there and you do walk on, you can go ahead and walk on, you know, hopefully get a scholarship like that. But
yeah,
it was just a waste. I just feel like it was just a waste. And
you got injured.
It was just a waste for me, man. It's like opportunities, man. And I sit back and I think, you know, and I be asking, you know, you're not supposed to question God, but I ask, like, why?
Yeah.
Why? I'm knocking, you know what I mean? And the door never opened.
Yeah. Yeah. You were banging on that door. You were kicking that door. You just didn't have the right people around you. You know, that's what it is. You know, you just didn't have the right people around you at all. So do they say, well, if you're not playing football, then there's no scholarship, or how does that work out?
Exactly. They're like, well, you know, these scholarships, there's other people, we have to use your scholarship. So you can't be medical red shirt because they're saying your sports is done. So if it was a medical red shirt, I would have been fine. I could sit out for a whole year or whatever.
If you're healing.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have been okay, but that wasn't the case.
Wow.
They was like, we have to give your scholarship to someone else.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So you can go ahead and figure out, you know, you can stay in school, but you got to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Mind you, I didn't have nobody to help me pay for this.
Yeah.
You know? So I had to come back.
Yep.
Come back to my reality.
And now you're worse off than you were when you left, because now the leg is just injured. Do you have medical insurance at this point? Nothing. Yeah. So you're just like, now I'm worse off.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're like, what, 19 at this point?
Yep.
Come back to Denver, worse off than when you left. Probably more frustrated, because it's like you put something in someone's hands and then took it out again, and now you're back in the same situation.
And this time it's just full time. This is where I'm back at home with my uncle and my mother.
Full time with them.
Full time.
So this is just drug using, gangbanging. Or I don't mean you using the drugs, but I mean the people around you.
Yes. It just took off from there. And at this point, all the money you're making, all this money, you're having all these different things. It's just the fast life. Now, I'm not worrying about nothing else. Now I'm like, well, this is it. I'm here now. Graduated into the street life, full-time thug, if you want to call it that, and it took off fast, and it didn't get good. Fascinated with firearms. You know what I mean? At that point, man, my temper was so bad. Like, it wasn't nothing, man, for me to pick up a gun and just squeeze, like, you know what I mean? And that's what I was doing. And I had a friend tell me, man, he was like, man, you play with these guns, man. You play with these guns, dude. That's not a good look. And I'm like, shut up, man. You know what I mean? Like, why is you worried about what I'm doing? And eventually, man, it came home, man. Like what they say, the chickens came home to roost. That caused that tragic night, man, playing with that firearm, man, and a life was lost, man. And there we go. Here we are. Yeah.
So, I don't know how much you want to talk about it. I don't know. Or just somebody lost their life.
Yeah. It still hurts my heart. You know what I mean? Because what I went through and what that family went through it all, it was just bad. It was bad. And the courts used my history against me. He's a gang member. He's doing this, he's doing that. And I'm telling them, like, no, man, this is truly, truly, truly an accident. But they didn't want to hear that. The court needed a conviction, and they got that.
Oh, so it was an accident.
It was, yes.
You and me have never talked about this.
No.
I knew you in there. I knew you had. Was it an actual murder charge?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew you had the murder charge, and you had. What'd you have, like 20 years, or what was it?
Sorry.
No, you're good. What was it, like 20 years?
22.
22 years. Yeah, I knew you had that sentence for murder. That's all I knew. You and me have never talked about it.
Yep.
So you're saying it was an accident?
It was.
Because you were playing with the guns, messing around with the guns.
Yeah.
Handling the guns, however you want to say it. And, yeah.
And then and then the people, the rumors, he did it intentionally. He did this and that. And I'm like, no, you guys wasn't there. It was truly an accident, man. And my heart still breaks for that. You know what I mean? And that's still a touchy subject for me, but I get a lot of pushback from people like, your past dictates your future, and and I'm listening at them. I'm like, you know what? You guys are sounding like my grandfather. You're a blockhead. You're pig-headed. You're not gonna be nothing. And I got so tired of that. I've been told this all my life, that you're not going to be nothing, where it finally got me to the point where I thought I was nothing. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I went into that courtroom and I told the judge, I stood in front of them all and I said, man, listen, I'm responsible. I took full responsibility for everything. You're saying it was intentional. I'm telling you it wasn't. We wouldn't be here in this situation right now if I wasn't playing with this firearm. You know what I mean? And the only reason why you're convicting me now is because I'm tattooed all up with this gang stuff all over me. And it's during the summer of violence. It's doing all this. You got the new DAs coming in. All this election stuff going on.
Was that 92?
92.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You know, so you needed a conviction.
Not your situation. I remember this
No.
quote unquote summer of violence.
Yeah, it was all that. It was so much going on that summer.
Yeah.
You know.
Because I think the gangs were building up a lot at that point.
Was.
They were expanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Except for, I think, the Park Hill, the Bloods, they've been here, I thought, for a minute.
No, actually, it was on the other side, the Crips, and then the Bloods started. Well, they both been here for a while, so yeah.
So, man, there's something I was thinking about. I forgot. But, oh yeah, I remember now. So you had also mentioned to me the other day, and I don't, it's up to you if you want to speak on this, but you had said that, some of the people, I'm thinking you were talking about some of the people that were affected by the loss of this person,
Mm-hmm.
that had, how they feel towards you.
Yeah. I still, every blue moon, I used to have a Facebook page, and
Nobody has, or no, Facebook. I thought you said MySpace last time.
Facebook.
Yeah, okay, never mind.
I used to have a Facebook page, and I used to get they used to message me on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, come on, guys. I took full responsibility for it, right? They sent me to prison for 22 years. I did 11 years on that 22 years, right? I did my time. I don't even know what to say, but I paid my debt back to society. I can't reverse what was done, but I can tell you this: I promised to live a better life because of it. And if it wasn't for the mother, by the grace of God, who is in my corner, writing letters, advocating for me,
The mother of the person that lost their life.
The victim, yes.
Yeah.
Advocate did all that for me. Where the courts did reduce, knock the 22 to 16, that was able to allow me to come home. It was the mother who advocated all this for me. God rest her soul. But I still, every now and then, people may say, oh yeah, Reggie, yeah, isn't he the one who did this? And I try to tell people, why are you so focused on, you want to remember me by my past, the bad. Well, let's talk about the good I've done. Let's talk about home. Let's see. I've been home since 2002. I haven't had another run-in with the law since 92. Raised my children. They went to college. One graduated from college. The other one's getting ready to graduate from college. I have another one that's an aspiring artist, musician, who's doing really good. You know what I mean? I got a family. I have a wife. I mean, I'm doing everything. I'm upstanding in the community. I ain't had no issues. None of that. I've fully, grown. I'm grown. I outpassed a lot of the guys that I used to run around with. They're still doing the same thing. And I don't have the desire to do that. Life is bigger than me now. I see things a lot clearer. And I think this was something that God had for me to see, wanted me to see. You have to experience all this just to get to where you're going, where I want you to be. And now at this point, I'm taking it one day at a time.
So are these people related to the victim, or are they just people who know both of you?
People who know and people who are related.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, through all this, I lost my brother.
Your older brother?
My older brother.
The one you've been talking about this whole time?
I lost him in 99. He was murdered.
You know what were you and me, I think I knew you in 99. I think I remember you either right after that happened or when that happened. Yeah.
I took it bad. I took it really hard because
that's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you felt the same pain.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because how did he pass?
He was murdered.
So the same
Same
thing.
fashion, yep.
The same thing happened to you.
Yep.
I mean, maybe not the same circumstances, but the same loss.
Right.
Happened to you.
So, you know, and like I tell everyone, like, how can I hold the next person accountable for what he's done? You know, how can I hold a grudge? How can I be angry at the person who took my brother's life? Where at the same time, I'm asking God and begging everyone else for forgiveness of my transgressions. You see? So I look at it as I have to let that go, because this guy is probably asking the same thing. I never got a chance to talk to the guy. I don't know. My brother's case is unsolved, but I still had to put it out there, like, whoever it was or the people who was involved, I forgive you, and I have to move on. I have to move forward. I'm not going to sit here and become hardened at the heart because I was in that same situation.
Yeah. I mean, you can understand, though, if some people, especially the ones that are related to the one that lost their life in your situation, you can probably understand that, you know, maybe they don't want to forgive, and that's up to them.
But that's their right.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I really love to hear your perspective on it and how you kind of are dealing with the situation of whoever, you know, that happened with your brother. You know, that's deep, man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like I say, man, I'm just grateful. For one, I'm still here after all that I'm going through. And this is a side that I don't even, you know, my kids don't even know, you know, that he's just dad, you know?
Yeah.
I don't brag about it. I don't talk about it. You know, if somebody may mention it, I may change the subject on it, because that's something my kids don't need to know. You know, if they come to me and sit down and say, Dad, we heard, and they ask, I would sit down and I'll talk to them about it. But my kids, my wife, my family don't see me that way. When they hear that, they're like, wait a minute, what? You know?
Yeah.
This is not the person that I know. You know what I'm saying? And you know, it just blows them away, you know? And that's why when people say your past dictates your future, I'm like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, they know the Reggie that's like bringing home the milk and,
right.
Oh, the car has got a check engine light on. Oh, let's go take it to the car dealership. You know, that's the Reggie they know.
Right. Yeah. So like when, you know, people are saying you are who you are, you've always been that. I'm like, no. You know, I was just talking to my wife today, and I was like, you know, as a child, we used to have those books, like when they come in for them book clubs or the book drives, and you go in and you get to spend $2-3 on a book, and they had all these different books where it's an adventure book where you're reading this book and saying that you can come to a fork in the road. You can go left, you can go right, choose which path that you want to go. And you read that book and say, I choose to go right. And that book said, oh, well, you chose to go right. So you're over here with all these mystical people and warlocks or whatever, and your fate is bad. And then you're like, no, I don't want to go right, and I'm going to go left. And when you go left, it's like all the straight, easy, and right way, right? So that's why I look at life for me, man, is I got to that fork in the road and I just chose the wrong path. But that path that I took may have been a long way, but eventually it got me to the road that I was supposed to be on anyway.
Well, I think guys like you and me who went through a lot of the things we went through and ended up where we're at now, I think we got lucky too, because there's a lot of percentages. If you start at like 100%, all right, when you start off as a child, you're at 100%, and then different circumstances take down that percentage of success, and then it just, all of the things that you even mentioned today, it just knocks off a lot of percentages of success in this outcome that you're in now. I mean, there could have been a point where you were at like a 5 to 10% chance of making it through it, you know? So, yeah, it's, I don't think, I see a lot of people that went through things in life, things that you talked about, other things, and they you know, they succumb to those percentages, got them. You know, it's just, like you said, you turn left, turn right, and sometimes there's nothing they can do. They're just in a corner, and they're done, you know, and a lot of them get addicted to drugs or get killed, get injured, you know, permanently, seriously injured to where they can't even work or who knows what. So I'd say there's a little bit of luck in there. And I think there's also some intuitive stuff that I've seen with guys like us that kind of navigate things in a way that with the luck, we're able to kind of wiggle through, you know, the mistakes.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know, it's like, you know, because you can be a knucklehead to a point. And then, you know, sometimes you have to know how to turn it off. I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get in as much trouble as you want in any situation. And I felt like I always got myself to a point where I was in trouble and then said, okay, let me turn it down. In trouble, turn it down. And of course, I've gotten a lot of trouble and ended up in, you know, all my situations. But I didn't turn it up by saying, oh, let me, like you, I don't think you ever got into drugs.
No.
Yeah. So we could have turned it up on that and said, oh, well, I'm going to do the whatever.
Yeah.
Because it was always around us. I know it was around you. It was around me. So, yeah, I think we're lucky that we got through, and then that we also kind of probably made some decisions along the way here and there, even though we made some bad decisions. Probably didn't make the worst ones.
Right. I look at it as like, you'll never get me in that situation ever again. I would never allow somebody to dictate what I do or control my thoughts or anything. You know, I'm quick to tell somebody, nah, I'm good. I don't care how you think or what you feel about me because I've been there. I know where that leads. I know what, you know, what it got me into in the past. So I've never do it. I've had people that I've ran into and they was like, man, you've changed, man. No, I ain't changed, man. I'm wiser, bro.
But it's good that you changed.
Like, I don't no longer, that doesn't drive me no more. Like, you can go ahead and go, but I'm not going to take part of that, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I lost a lot of friends behind that, but I'm okay with that, you know? I got best friend right at home waiting on me right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
But I think good people, they should appreciate that side of you too. You know, old friends, if they see you want to do good, they should appreciate that and respect that.
And see, but they don't. So those aren't your friends. You know, I just call them frenemies or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so.
I always wonder, man, with these stories that we're talking about, all of it seems to stem from the role models, you know, because when you're a kid and you're born to certain people and you're in certain situations, you really don't have control. I didn't feel like I had control over my decisions until I was a teenager, late teenager, maybe 15, 16, something like that. I don't know. But before that, definitely as a child, you have no control and you're just a victim, or you're at the mercy of whoever holds the strings for you, whoever's responsible for taking care of you. You're at the complete mercy of those people. And unfortunately, I feel like that's where all the kids like you and me come from, in the sense of the stuff we experience. It's because those people don't do their damn job, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I feel for those kids that are out there now. I don't even know what I would say to a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old who's like in those situations, you know, like, because there's really nothing they can do. It's not like they can just walk out of the house and walk. There's not a place that they can walk to and just say, hey, I want to live a different kind of life. Right. That's hardly there for anybody.
And that's where I look at the community. They're failing a lot of the youth. There should be places where kids can get that. There should be places where a kid needs help that they can go to, and somebody, will put them on the right track. I do remember like they have mentors like big brothers and big sisters and all these different programs, right? But I sit back and I'm like, how can I, you know, be a part of this without them pulling up like, well, your past is this or you're not. We can't take you. Like, but this is something, man, I can help. If I can see me in this child, you know, I can help them. You know, like, hey, I know where you come from. I get it. I was you at one point in time. And this is where it led me. You know what I mean? If I can steer somebody that way, man, I would love to do that.
No, we could. You know? The government could. It kind of pisses me off that we spend billions of dollars on all these wars. I don't know what we're up to in Ukraine right now. I don't know if it's like is it like $800 billion?
I don't know. I was paying attention to it until like 6 months ago. And
it gets old, right?
Yeah, I thought, it's all the same stuff. It's like they're keeping it going.
But imagine dividing that up to 50 states and then dividing that up to major metropolises in every state, major cities in every state, and what that money would do.
They do a lot.
For centers and education. Yeah. And now they're like closing a bunch of schools. I think a lot of kids are doing homeschool now.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother conversation because I don't think kids should do homeschool. I get it. My sister homeschools her kids. It's for religious purposes. I get it. Those kids are great. They're lucky with my sister, but I guess the aspect I don't like is the social aspect, the lack of us. But she makes sure that they have those social groups. But some of these kids, man, they go get locked up in their house for a year, just in their room, doing their online school, and then they come out, you know, in 6 months wearing, you know, a cat outfit and meowing and thinking that they're like an animal or some shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, these ones are a problem. Like, sure, we have a free country, you can do what you want, but
they're walking around with attitudes. It's like they're angry. You know, you can be driving by or you can walk by. I get this. I can walk by and say, how you doing, brother? You know what I mean? And they'll look at you, you know, like, don't be talking to me, you know, like, I'm just greeting you, you know, and I just noticed that a lot of these youth, they're just angry, man. They're angry, and we got to figure out why are they angry? You know, is it the environment that they're in, or is it something going on at home? You know, a lot of them, they just isolate themselves and they're angry.
I have seen a lot of anger in the black youth because I grew up around a lot of blacks and Puerto Ricans, especially back east, and then in California, a lot of Hispanics and blacks. And after the last 4 years, I think after the first Trump presidency, for some reason, a little more division going on around in our country. And I noticed that black people were, because I'm a big bald white guy. Like if I walk into a place and I just don't have a hat on and I'm just bald and white and big, I see black people look at me like
stereotype.
Yeah. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not that guy though.
Yeah.
You know, I got 3 babies mamas and they're all different races and none of them are white. And I'm like, okay, there's that. And I'm like, that's cool. But I don't really react to it. I'm just like, damn. But then I just wonder, man, is that how they feel? Is that how they feel? Like, you know, when white people look at them. But then I see they're looking at me because I fit that stereotype. And so they don't trust. And I'm like, okay. And then I noticed with, I grew up with black kids my whole life, and it was not really a big deal, I think, in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. But I've noticed recently where black kids are a lot more mistrusting and a lot angrier. So I don't know about that. And then I feel like the white kids are not the ones that had come from good families.
Right.
They're fine. I mean, those kids are on their game, man. You see these towns where these kids, good schools, good A personality, parents, and they're focused and they've got schedules, they've got routines, they're playing sports, they're doing their schoolwork. Like I said, they're more career focused and things like that. It's just like all these other kids that are doing this weird, like, I feel like we have a bunch of teenagers that are like 5 years old or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. I haven't figured it out myself. I don't know. Our society too is a little weird too, because with us being a really strong capitalist society, America is just like, I'm hearing some feedback.
Yeah, you hearing that too?
Just some fuzzy stuff.
Yeah, it just started randomly. I don't know what.
It's all good. It's not that bad now. It just only happened for a second. But I just feel like America focuses a lot on money.
Yeah.
So we can sit here and talk about, how this group of kids acts this way and that group of kids acts that way. But I feel like anytime you have a society that just focuses on money a lot and like, what can you do for me? And how much can I make off of you? And, it's like a selfish type of environment. Do you hear it still? I hear it.
Yeah, I hear it too. I'm not sure what it is. It's not showing up on here.
It's not terrible. It's very subtle.
I can hear it. It like appears and goes away. I don't think it's in the actual recording because it's not showing up as like on the audio meters.
Okay, no worries.
So it's probably headphone lines crossed with some power lines or something like that, and it's pulling power.
Yeah. I just feel like what happens in those situations is you lose focus. Like society loses focus because society is so distracted by chasing money.
Right.
And like even use someone like your dad, for example, right? That's like an analogy where he's focused on being a musician and focused on being that, and then didn't give time to his children. That's probably not a good example because I'm thinking of society at a higher level. I just feel like we're selling these kids out, man, on a daily basis. And I feel like there's a lot more drugs in America too.
Yeah, that's a lot of that's driven. I hear them talk about it all the time, stuff like the codeine, the drinking the codeine, and just so much different stuff, man, where it's just like, geez, like, where are we going as a society? Like, when is this acceptable?
And it's not the kids that are like bringing drugs into America. It's the adults. So you have a bunch of, like, you have a society that only cares about money, that's extremely focused on money. It's a very, very strong capitalist society. And then you have a society that I feel like I grew up around. We talked earlier, and the people around us that were doing drugs and with the dealing the drugs. And I had the same thing around me when I was a kid. I used to go to sleep on the couch while people were partying and, drinking and playing classic rock, and there was drugs everywhere. I used to find needles too when I was a kid. And I remember kind of finding cocaine. Man, I was 6 years old the first time I found cocaine and marijuana and stuff like that. And but even with that, I knew those people. Those people still got up. A lot of them they still went to work. They still had full-time jobs. They weren't standing on the street like zombies, as they talk about the people that are out there now on this fentanyl and stuff. It wasn't like that. Like, people were still, even with the crack epidemic, people were still functional to an extent.
Right.
But now there's so many people on drugs. Like, so many people on drugs. And so many more people are homeless on drugs. And not just people with mental problems. There's like, now it used to just be people that had mental problems were homeless on drugs. And so now you have normal people, quote unquote normal people without mental issues or whatever, out there on drugs. So now I just think back to our conversation. Sorry, I know I went on a long loop there. A lot of these people have kids. So now you have that kid, And I skipped to like 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old earlier, because I think when you're 5, you're oblivious to what's going on. You know, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now 8, 9, you're starting to, okay, what's going on?
Yep.
10, 11, 12, you're really like, okay, you've got an awareness now. And man, I don't even know what I would tell a kid. You know what I did when I was 12? I ran away from home. I just left. I just couldn't do it anymore. There was a lot of reasons, but it was the just the mistreatment physically. We get beat every day, and just the drugs. At that point they were hiding the drugs better, but you're not dumb. Everybody's high all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Stepdad comes home, he's in the bathroom. He's in there for 2 hours. He was a heroin addict, shooting up heroin in the bathroom every day. And I was just sick of it, man. I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I was in Connecticut. I ran away, and that's actually when I ended up in California. I didn't run away all the way to California. I ran away in Connecticut, and then I eventually, my grandparents sent me out to California to stay with my dad, who was living in a trailer at the time when I got to California, behind a bar, no electricity, swear to God. A small ass trailer, no electricity, and he was using heroin over there too.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And there's lots of stories that go with all that. But at that time, when I finally got to him, I was 13, and I just think I don't think at any point of any of that I could really find a place of safety or sanctuary or security. I think security is probably the biggest word, right? Like normalcy. It's just like, what do we do, man? We're sending all this money to these wars. We're closing down schools. Kids are going home. Like you said, either they're getting angry or they're getting weird or they're confused.
Yep.
I think that's kind of where I was going earlier with all this stuff I was saying. But it's just like, I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Unless a kid is fortunate to have somebody as a mentor, I don't know what they do. And I don't know if my message would even, if I told you, what advice would you give to a kid who was in your same situation as a kid, I don't know if the advice would be even good for a kid to give a kid, because there's nothing they could do. I think the advice is better served for the adult.
Right.
To say, hey man, sacrifice, get these kids out, give them some years, give them a chance at life, and then go back to your bullshit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nowadays, when you try to give that advice, some of the youth is looking at you like, you don't know. Like, you're old. You know what I mean? Like, you're old. That life is different. It's different now. So I get some of that sometimes too. And I'm like, excuse me. It's just a society, because they're quick. Everything now, man, is electronics. Everybody, they'll Google things. They'll see things on TV. They'll put it in perspective and stuff like that. So that's the way these kids are looking at things now. Mine would tell me like, you're old, Dad. Come on. That's so old school. And I'm like, no, but if you listen, there's a message behind what I'm trying to tell you.
Well, they always say if you tell kids things, it clicks at later points. Like later on, right? Something will happen, they'll be like, oh shit, my dad told me this. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
So, but most kids do not want to hear from someone who's not their mentor, like their parent. So like stepdads, nobody wants to listen to a fucking stepdad. It's rare that a stepdad really has a good relationship with a kid. And there are there's a lot of situations out there where a man steps in and he's great, and the kids love him. But I feel like it has to be from that person. I feel like that's the best. I guess it doesn't have to be from that person. It can be from a good mentor. There's a lot of good mentors out there that aren't going to be your parents, but I feel like it's the best source, is from that person. If that person can do it, that'd be the best source to get it from.
See, and that's why,
because that's who the kid wants to hear it from.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, not having my father in my, really there, like, when it's time for me to give that advice or to try to show, lay down the foundation or the path, my father wasn't there, man, to teach me how to be a good father figure, a good husband, or just a good man in general. I had to figure it out on my own the best way that I could so that I can pass it on to my children, to my family. You know what I mean? And that's why sometimes I sit back and like, Dad, you messed it up. You dropped the ball so bad. Everybody was like, be a man, shut up and be a man. But how can I be a man if a man is not teaching me how to be a man?
For sure.
I have to go somewhere else to figure out how to be a man. Meaning, being incarcerated, you're learning from somebody who's been there 30-something years, a lifer or whatever. I'm not saying everybody's there for a reason. A lot of people that's there deserve to be there. But at the same time, there's a lot of good people there too. You know what I mean? So I was taking bits and pieces from a lot of those elders that were there and trying to apply it to my life, because my father or my past peers didn't lay the foundation for me to be a man.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, if I had to give a kid some advice, I would say this, man. I would say that start a book in your mind, and that book has 2 sections. One section, write down in your mind everything that you see somebody else do that's wrong and that's bullshit. Write it down in the section of things not to do. And then in the other section, everything that you see that somebody else does that works, that's good, that's going to benefit you, write that in the other section, and then try to do those things. Yeah, other than that, the adults need to get with the program, need to take care of the kids. And it's a sacrifice. It is.
Yes.
It's a sacrifice. But if you don't do it, you're not following the normal order of things. And we're leaving these kids out here to end up like Reggie and myself, even though we're doing really good now.
Yes, sir.
But you made it hard on us, man.
Yeah.
So stop making it hard on the kids, and stop being lazy and selfish. Stop being selfish. That's the biggest thing.
My thing is, what I want people to know, that there is hope. People can change.
Yeah.
I'm an example. You're an example. We had it rough, but people change.
For sure.
We made a whole 360. That's why I tell people, I'm not the same person as yesterday as I am today. You know what I mean? Yesterday's gone. Today's a whole new day. I'm a whole new person. I see things and I view things and I do things different. Yeah, I was young. I didn't have that structure. I didn't have that guidance. So I had to put it together myself and learn as I go, but piece it as I go. And man, I'm just thankful, man, I got it right.
Yeah. With a little bit of luck, I feel like, for me.
Yeah.
I got a little lucky.
So my thing is, at the end of the day, the time that I have left, I want people to say, hey, Reggie he was this, but man, that guy, man, he totally turned it around.
Yeah.
Look all the stuff he accomplished. Look at his children. Respectable. Well-behaved, mannerable, good. That's all that matters. What my legacy that I leave behind, because I know a lot of guys whose kids join gangs that's doing prison time with them, or it's not even here. I'm just thankful that mine didn't choose that path,
Yeah. When you say doing time with him, you mean locked up together?
Locked up together.
Yeah, I've seen fathers and sons locked up together. It's a trip, isn't it? It's actually sad. It made me sad when I seen it. I was like, oh man, that's sad.
You and your father doing life. Your son you can't leave a legacy. There's nothing to leave. Okay, the father's gone, but the son is locked up. He can't get out and raise a family. He can't do, you know what I mean? He can't do that. He's doing life.
I think in that situation, I've seen that situation. It was like 2 or 3 times. And I think I felt worse for the father, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was like, man, just empathizing. Like, what if I was in that situation where my son was in there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the son is like, well, your father's in there, okay, but you were supposed to guide your son, and you didn't. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah,
that's rough, man. Yeah. I feel like. Do you feel like you're like? It's like 2 different lives. Like you had the life before and what happened, and then you have who you are now, and that's part of the second chances and moving on as a different person.
I call it a rebirth.
Yeah.
Right. So, a lot of people like, well, you're known as Reginald Carter, right? But your ID says Mu'ata Ajala. And I tell everybody, I was like, well, in 1992, Reginald Carter passed. He doesn't exist. He's gone. And my rebirth was my release. From that point on until now, this is what you get. You're getting Mu'ata Ajala, a whole new, totally different person. So my past is behind me. My future's before me. And this is what it is. This is who I am. This is who I am today. You know? And I'm okay with it. Because a lot of people said, you're not going to be nothing. You'll probably be dead before you're 21. Well, guess what? I'm not dead. I'm 50 years old. I'm here. And I'm doing better today than I was yesterday.
That's all you can do, man. Well, I think on that note, Reggie, we'll wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming, man. That was
Thank you for having me.
Great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you.